Hi guys, we are back. You are listening to the Social Shepherds. Have you heard? It's a pleasure to be back with you guys again. I am with the wonderful Jack Shepherd.
Thank you very much.
And today we are talking about paid media predictions for next year, the year of 2024. Now, 2023 has been definitely a big shift. I think probably the biggest shift since I've been in the industry. Which is a big claim, which is really kind of over the last 6-7 years. Just because the amount of automation and AI that's come into play with the new campaign types of PMAX, ASC campaigns on Meta, which has really changed up the landscape and how we're approaching things for sure. But there's for sure some changes coming up that aren't AI driven for next year. And I think the two main ones that we're really looking at are ones that are going to affect tracking and measurement, ones that we don't necessarily know the impact of. We've been kind of speculating what's going to happen. But Jack, do you want to go into a bit more about what those are?
I guess it's always a topic that quite often comes up with brands and clients, especially tracking and measurement. They're always trying to figure out exactly where every penny's spent and where it's all gone and what's the impact of every single penny. Obviously, it's coming harder, but like I said, speculation is something we're trying to figure out how this could all play out over the next year. So the first one we wanted to touch on is new iOS, iOS 17. Yeah. There are changes coming to that, which I know.
Apple like to throw a curveball, don't they?
Yeah. So, Apple again. So it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out. So the big things about this one in iOS 17 is UTM stripping. Basically, it's taking out the UTM. So when you actually, if you add a UTM onto a paid social ad, someone clicks it before you get into the browser, Apple has stripped it away. Yeah. Which for you, over the last few years, has been a standardized thing that you've always included.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when this change comes into play, in-platform tracking isn't going to change. You're still going to get all of your pixel data pulling through. But the main one is really looking at on-site metrics when we see those users coming from the platforms, and interacting on the website. We can look at that, split that down by UTM, and see how those interactions kind of are being made. And that's been a really important one for us as well, because I think one of the things that we've always been speaking about is how that last click attribution piece plays a massive part in kind of painting a picture of in terms of overall performance, and we might lose visibility on that. Now, what does that mean? It means that if the tracking parameters do get stripped, if your data your user is coming through from Meta, for example, the default for Meta is Facebook/referral traffic in Google Analytics. So essentially, without any UTMs, that is what your traffic will come through as. So we may lose the ability to then see the traffic tagged as whatever you may tag it as from a source medium perspective. We use Facebook CPC, but it means that we might have to be measuring uplift from a Facebook referral standpoint, which is definitely not ideal.
Yeah, I think we've touched on it before. In terms of looking at your paid media spend on a blended model of, like you said, uplift, incremental change in revenue, growth for, input versus output, I think it naturally sends ourselves, we need to be even doing that even more, I guess, and setting up clients in that way. What real other impacts do you think it could have, I guess, from you as a paid media marketer, performance marketer? Is any other sort of impacts you see that playing, or how will you shift conversations with brands?
Yeah, I mean, I think it still stays the same, to be honest, because we're not losing any revenue at the end of the day. It's just moving where it's being tracked from. And I think it's going to change the way that we report for sure, because we'll have to take into consideration the fact that, if it is Facebook referral traffic that we're looking at, that there is going to be other sources of users coming from that source that isn't just paid. Yeah. But it's all discussions to have. And I think realistically for any paid media managers, if this change does come in and if you're really, really worried about it, I think the main thing is just really being transparent with your clients and really talking them through the process and what's going to change in your approach towards it. If you're all on the same page from that standpoint, it should make any kind of client relationships from there pretty good, to be fair.
And then the other part of the measurement and tracking world is cookies.
Yeah.
We've touched on it before. I know you've been having some conversations with Google recently and our sort of partners there. What are you seeing happening in 2024 with the sort of cookieless world?
It's finally happening. It's been years in the making. I think Google have been talking about it for a long old time that it's going to happen. It was meant to happen 2022, then they pushed it back to this year, and then it's been pushed back again.
So whether it might be 2025.
I mean, it could be, but they're doing a gradual rollout essentially. So from January next year, 1% of users will be deprecated from third-party cookies.
January 24?
January 24. And then over time, over the months, they'll gradually increase that. And essentially what they're trying to do there is test the impact of what it's going to have on all of their kind of algorithms and that side of things. From the conversations I've had with Google, they are not worried, to be fair, about the impact. They seem pretty calm about it, but there is reason and methodology why they're doing an incremental rollout for it, is to identify if there are any issues. So we might get to the middle of next year and there'd be a mass panic where it's all kind of gone a bit wrong for them. And then we're in a position where we need to, well, they need to come up with a secondary solution. But as marketers, all we can do is be as prepared as we possibly can be for that. And realistically, the main thing, and I know we've spoken about this before, but really utilizing your first party data as much as you possibly can. The potential that might happen is that the Google's algorithm becomes less powerful because it's got less data to be able to run off. But as long as we're fueling it as much as we can with first party data, hopefully, should kind of counteract that. So that's kind of key point number one. But I think realistically, just keep out for comms from Google next year and see what kind of they're seeing. And listen to the industry, listen to people talking about it on Reddit, on LinkedIn. There's so many marketers out there that really keep an eye on this kind of thing. And we obviously will be too. But there's going to be so many conversations about it as the rollout happens. So it's going to be a really interesting one for sure.
Definitely. So I guess that covers the sort of tracking and measurement side of it, which is obviously plays a massive role within your day-to-day life and everyone else in sort of performance marketing. One that's obviously impacted broader than that is AI. But I guess specifically for paid media, we've obviously seen the rise of AI-driven campaigns, automation. How are you seeing that? Obviously, it's played a big part this year, but going into 2024, how do you see that taking shape?
So as we said, it's been a big shift already this year. I think, PMax is a bit more integrated now because that came out the previous year. And, we've had a bit of time to kind of work around kind of how we fit that into our Google Ads platforms. But Meta has really been the big shift this year. ASC campaigns, particularly for e-commerce clients, which is the campaign type is particularly built for. We've seen a complete shift in the way that we're managing and running our campaigns. We've done a lot of testing across the course of the year. So we used a top, middle, bottom of the funnel campaign structure, which is very much guiding users from initial interaction with the brand right the way through kind of light, soft touch interactions and then through to kind of heavy remarketing. But the heavy lifting in terms of all the targeting is really being done by ASC now. And we found that the performance of the campaign type itself, because it's all through one campaign as well, the algorithmic learning that you kind of get off the back end of it, because you're able to push that extra proportion of spend through one campaign instead of splitting it into three, is so much higher. And we're now in a position where we are looking to sunset our top, middle, bottom of the funnel structure and just let ASC do all the lifting in terms of targeting. Now that's changed massively the way that we approach our value add to clients, because I think certainly that targeting piece played a big role in all of our media planning, campaign planning, and the strategy side of things. And I'm not saying that's going to go away, because it's definitely going to be required for your creative side of things. Absolutely. Which is really where the weighting is going to go. We've been kind of working towards that anyway as an agency for a long time now, having kind of that creative emphasis. But for any other marketers out there, your creative is really going to be your key point of performance driving for anything across paid social.
Some people say it, I've seen it being phrased like, our creative is our targeting, basically.
Exactly.
And that gives Meta, the data to know who to send that, distribute that towards.
Exactly. And website structure as well off the back end of that, because of the way that the algorithm works within ASC. It's very much looking at your copy you're running, your, the creative that you're running on the landing pages, and then kind of your website content to dictate that audience. So there's definitely going to be still that strategic piece that's required from marketers, marketing managers, to dictate, look for those audiences. But the audiences that you're looking for aren't just to build into a campaign; they are to dictate your creative strategy. And that really takes it then to the next step further of like, where does the value add come for marketers when AI starts doing quite a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of kind of the day-to-day builds and the optimization and management of campaigns. And it really does come to that strategy piece and creative. I think those are the two kind of main core pillars that we as an agency are very much moving towards. I think it's something within the marketing industry we've been talking about for quite a few years now, around this shift towards moving more towards a strategic approach rather than kind of the day-to-day of campaign management. But it's actually happening now. And as we go into next year, more AI-driven campaigns are going to be coming out. ASC now is going to be bringing out a lead gen alternative to Advantage Plus shopping campaigns. So those that are working on a lead gen basis are going to be able to drive performance from that campaign type. So really interested to test that once that starts rolling out. But also on the Google side of things, we're very much, we've very much been in a phase now for the last couple of years where we've had PMax. Manual search still has its place within Google Ads accounts, but dynamic search is going away. That's being absorbed into Performance Max. And then we're really left then in terms of campaign structure on Google with Performance Max, demand generation, which has just come out, and manual search. Now, the manual search side of things is probably the least AI-driven thing out of all of those. And it's going to become more AI-driven because Google are pushing broad match as a keyword type a lot. And we know when Google push a product like that, it means the other products that they've got probably going to be going away at some point. So expectations for next year is that we might see phrase and exact match go away. But to be fair, it's probably a little bit early for them to be sunsetting that. But I wouldn't be surprised by 2025 if we only had broad match campaigns within Google.
Do you see like long term that they could just get rid of manual search altogether?
Potentially, yeah. And then it just all becomes Performance Max. And then again, it really relies on the strategy, how you're writing your copy, your product feed, how you're optimizing your product feed, how your creative is across Performance Max, across demand gen. And I think one of the big things for this year that we've seen the uprise of is YouTube Shorts. And I think that's going to be a massive platform to tap into next year. I think it's very underutilized at the moment. But initial testing from what we've seen is that YouTube is typically a platform for awareness, brand building, very difficult to get users off platform, but actually from a revenue generation perspective, we've actually seen much better results through Shorts than we have from any typical YouTube activity. So
are you seeing that as like contributed revenue growth, or are you seeing that as like last click from Shorts as well?
Last click revenue for sure. There's definitely more uplift in terms of what you would typically get on Shorts versus the rest of kind of typical YouTube in-stream pre-roll type content. But yeah, I mean, it all comes down to the blended piece as well, I think, for sure. We look at last click revenue and ways users are interacting on site after they've come from specific sources. But again, if we're seeing an uptick in the blended piece with the introduction of Shorts into the equation, then we know it's having that wider effect as well.
So are we saying goodbye to top, middle, bottom?
We're not. Because actually with the strategy that we've been using across paid social for many years now, demand generation really fits Google's version of that social. Essentially, it's Google's version of social. Now, in terms of targeting for demand generation, that is not AI driven yet. They said it might be coming, but gives us an opportunity to test that top, middle, bottom of the funnel structure for demand generation campaigns for sure, and see how we can best utilize those campaigns to drive performance. And I think there's a lot of testing to do from that perspective. It's a very new type of product for Google. So there's going to be many marketing managers out there will be testing lots of different approaches, but we for sure will be looking at our top, middle, bottom of the funnel approach that we had been using on paid social previously, to see whether we can get the most out of the campaign itself.
Amazing. Is that us for our predictions? You got any more?
I think so. I can't think of any more for now, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think we spoke before as well. YouTube Shorts is going to be one, and demand gen campaigns is going to be one that we're going to do another podcast on across this year as it develops further. So we're going to be on the ball with that and sharing as much insight as we possibly can there. But thank you very much for everyone watching. Please make sure to subscribe wherever you are, and we'll see you very, very soon.
Take care.